No hipsters.
No hipsters.
No hipsters pod.
Episode 54, No Hipsters Pod. It's your boy Ron Say, the founder of NoHipstersLaw.com. And this week, our guest is my dear friend, the strategic communicator, Malika.
Hi.
Say what's up.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome. You really should have been here already, but I'm glad we finally made it happen. Actually, on the 50th episode, I think you're like the star of the show. Like everybody's like raving about you and all the cool things you said.
The Kanye conversation so often ends up throwing folks with other people with mental health issues under the bus in a way that tends to just kind of paint them all with one brush and like create a really negative picture of what mental health issues actually look like.
So I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. It's
Especially
a pleasure.
in person.
Thank
Yes.
you. Cheers.
All right, let's get right to it. So Rihanna.
Can I talk about the fact that we cheers and I drank and then you didn't drink?
Let's do it over.
I'm just saying.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. I feel like it goes
Mind you,
against the code.
We were. It is.
It just goes against the code. That's all I'm saying.
That's my bad. And we were drinking for like an
Just
hour.
like common
before this,
courtesy.
But okay. Rihanna.
Yes.
Pregnant. Yeah. Finally, after years of like the rumors and all of that, she's
Yes.
finally,
She's
with
actually-
child.
yes,
And ASAP was the man to do it. Lucky man. Who would have thought? It would be him.
Okay, so obviously on the one hand, major congratulations to her. I
Yes.
think she is like the most gorgeous pregnant woman, and she just has this glow about her that I think shows everyone that she's like genuinely happy about this baby.
Right.
And it's been nice to like see her in a relationship and like see her in something that that feels like she really wants to be in. So that's really nice. When I think about kind of like this relationship overall, though, my first thought is always in this context, like her brand, because she's a billionaire, she's a mogul, she has, Fenty, and her
1.7
brand,
billion. That's a lot of money.
her brand is not just music any longer. It hasn't been for a minute. We ain't never getting that out. First and foremost, we ain't never getting that out.
It's been 6 years since Auntie, so
We never get that out.
yeah.
But I say that to say that when I think about like Fenty as a brand, it's always been about this like really inclusive space for women, right? And inclusive sizing and diversity in models and all of these things that have made her kind of stand out in the industry and have really made her a unicorn, just being this incredible woman who is like behind this force. And so when I think about that and then think about her chosen partner,
Wake it up.
I'm just saying, I just wonder from a branding perspective whether or not that is being considered. And who knows? Because, and just for context, like I'm referencing the fact that A$AP Rocky has made disparaging comments about darker Black women, and also has made commentary about, Black Lives Matter and following the George Floyd death.
I think it was Mike Brown.
It was Mike Brown.
Yeah, Mike
You're
Brown,
right.
yeah.
You're right.
And let's just to remind people watching, after
Yeah.
Mike Brown died, he basically said something to the effect that he didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's like a lot to kind of unpack there, because on the one hand, I think that there's a common misconception that Black people, once they achieve a certain level of fame or wealth or prestige, are somehow then immune to the impacts of racism. And we see time and time again that that's just not the reality. Like your money does not save you, your fame does not save you, your title does not save you. It doesn't matter how many people like have your records or know who you are still, at the end of the day, a nigga.
Yeah,
and
he
that's
found out
just
the hard way in, where was it, Sweden?
Yeah. So, and so that being said, like, it's hard to then imagine that you could have that kind of perspective, knowing how you are viewed and how you are perceived worldwide. And so I think that there's like a lot of kind of insulation that must exist for you to assume that people are not viewing you in that way, or that this is not something you should care about because of what, whoever you are. So
And that's on ASAP's part.
That's on ASAP's part. So that's one thing that is already an issue. Second to that, of course, is his comments about, darker Black women. And as a chocolate mogul myself, no, I mean, when I hear these things, like, I'm not pressed because it's something that I've like heard consistently. And at the end of the day, you can think whatever you think, but
still got the purple lipstick.
That ain't my business. Is all it's my perspective. It's not my business. Like what you think about me or people who look at like me, it's really not my concern. It is damaging, I will say, especially for any woman who hears that and actually is internalizing that. And that damage, in a lot of ways, can have applicability to Rihanna's brand. And so I think that when they first started dating, you saw a lot of this energy and a lot of that commentary coming out where people were like, wait, but isn't he a colorist? How do you reconcile like being this mogul attached to this amazing brand that you've created around the concept of inclusivity, and then partnering with this person who, for all I know, has changed. Like, perhaps, it's been a couple of years since these comments. I think this was like 2019 maybe. So perhaps he has grown. I have no idea. I think that people have the capacity for growth.
But which of the comments specifically?
Specifically, I'm talking about the colorist comments. Okay,
those are more recent.
Those are more recent.
Yeah.
And so perhaps he has grown. I have no idea. I don't know this person. And so while I would like to think that, there is a possibility that he has come to understand like why that view is so problematic, my immediate thought when I think beyond the brand is he is approximately my complexion, right? And the way genetics work means that his child is likely to either be his color or somewhere in between. Like, there's a high probability that baby is gonna come out looking like him. And he has lovely skin, mind you.
Yeah, but
it's lovely skin.
Well, Rihanna's really, really light.
She is, but I'm just saying that's genetics. Yeah. Like, you don't know.
Yeah,
you just don't know. And, the way genetics works, it's like the child could come out looking like Rihanna, could come out looking like him, could come out there's such a range when it comes to Blackness, because we just have such a spectrum of melanin, and there's something that is just really incredible about the aesthetics that we manage to show up with. But that's the point that I make, though, is like, you don't know what your child is going to look like. And so are you then comfortable bringing a child into the world and feeling really like you have the capacity to pour into them and to pour everything that they need to really face the world that is already going to, in a lot of ways, be against them from jump? And so I just think that for me, that's something that I consistently consider when I consider partners, when I consider just like who I interact with in general, is like, I am not a mother yet, but if I ever do have children, my immediate thought process is like, is this potential father going to pour into my child and going to like shower them in the love and the protection of pride that they're going to need to like go out into the world and live their best life? Okay. And so I just have those questions.
Okay.
Is all I'm saying. Right, I don't know.
Right, of course.
I'm just saying I got these questions.
Yeah. Unanswered.
Unanswered.
And of course she doesn't have to answer. It's her life. The baby's on the way, right?
Exactly. And also, I don't know Rihanna.
Right.
So like, she doesn't have to answer these questions to me. I'm just saying, like, from a branding perspective, that is something I think about, because she has a business, and it's not just me asking these questions. It's
aside from the business, like
it's
other personal
people.
Brand. How do you reconcile this person and these comments with who you are?
Precisely.
So, but of course, relationships never make sense like that.
Yeah.
Like, people always end up with people that don't always align with their values. We would hope that that he changes or whatever, but like, it is what it is. They're both rich, famous, good looking, in many ways the perfect couple, right? But that you bring up some very fair points about how there's a slight misalignment as far as who they've been in the public eye.
Yeah.
And some people also say, like, and I hate when people say this, but I get it. like, like she's too good for him in terms of like she's too big for him, right? Especially when people were saying you were just dating this like billionaire dude up until what 2 years ago, and so people basically think she's birthing it down, if that makes any sense, or mating down.
See, I wouldn't even say that though, because I feel like it's problematic to try to like put people into boxes and be like, oh, well, only you're only allowed to fall in love with whoever,
people in this tax bracket.
Right. I just feel like that's weird and kind of gross, but
that's the general.
And no, I'm not saying that people don't feel that way. I'm just saying that like for me personally, I'm like it's actually not your business. Like
so basically, Forbes goes singer, billionaire,
that shit was so funny.
And whatever.
That headline was hilarious.
And and her rapper boyfriend. It was.
That headline
was so funny. Like, damn.
That headline sent me.
Oh my goodness. You're like, nah.
I said, damn.
They don't respect ASAP, but it's all good.
But you know what though? Like, what I loved about that though, aside from like kind of my my views on ASAP, and the problematic things that he has said, aside from that, I just like as a woman, found a lot of joy in that, because you so often have these headlines where you have two people that are in a lot of like in so many ways like equally yoked, but the man is the center of the headline, and it's like billionaire entrepreneur so and so marries, I don't know, shrimp farmer, like I don't know, you know what I mean, like it's like some basic
Jeff Bezos and his wife, or this
literally
person, unless like it's Brad and Angelina,
exactly,
they're both
exactly,
or
and
it's like Beyonce and Jay-Z, where she's the more famous person, even though he has more money than
But it's like there's always this disparity in like how couples are addressed in the public eye, depending on like who is more public, even if the partner is like incredibly accomplished and has their own money and all that. Like you're always like a derivative of this.
It makes sense though. If the person's more famous, has more money.
No, I totally get that. I'm just saying like there are also certain moments, though, I will say, not even when you're talking about famous people, but like say for example, we have like a lot of really accomplished friends, right? And so for myself in my profession, like often there is the assumption, say for example, like a female coworker of mine shows up at an event and she's brought her spouse. There is the assumption that her spouse is the invited person and she is not. And it doesn't actually matter what the spouse does. Like he could be an artist, he could be a lawyer, he could be like any amazing, person. But the fact that the assumption is always that like he must be this distinguished, individual,
like
and she is like the derivative.
She's the appendage.
That's what blows me. And so that's why that headline, I was like, oh, well, chuckle. Yeah. Slight chuckle.
A tweet.
Say.
There's a tweet
that was like,
our Angel, Rihanna, and Local Man. Yeah, they were like our Angel, Rihanna, and Local Man. It's just like, yo.
I was like, facts.
Right.
That was basically the headline. I died.
That was so funny. But listen, I love it. I love it.
But I am happy she's happy. I will say that.
Yeah, of course. Listen, ultimately, like we don't know these people, and they can do whatever they want, and we know people who make horrible decisions every day.
Oh, literally.
I mean, it's not saying the decision is horrible, but we're saying
but I'm saying like, but at the same time, like one thing that I've had to learn is that somebody else's decision is not my decision, and it doesn't have to be. And the person that I would choose is definitely not the person that somebody else would choose. But that's why there's somebody for everybody.
Right. It
hopefully.
Right.
So there's that.
Congrats, Rihanna. We love to see it. The pregnancy shoot, I have to say.
That was lovely. Well, okay, so here's the thing. No, and I say that, but I say that
like
because it was and I say that because it was just so casual. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it was just like it felt like, oh, we're just out here living our lives.
Right. So it's like for how glam Rihanna is, she very much likes this
Yeah, but I think that's just kind of like her energy. Like she's just like she does. Yeah. She does have some hipster energy. But I just feel like that's just kind of her aesthetic, and if that is like, I'm never one to shade pregnancy photo shoots unless they're like crazy egregious. Right. And that's because again, my preference is not gonna be your preference. Like what I want to showcase is not going to be what you want to showcase. And so if you want it to be like this casual vibe, strolling through New York with your man, live your best life. Like, you look beautiful. She's always going to look stunning. She's a super cute pregnant lady.
Saw them before it was public. Because they were out in public.
Because they were just like out here living.
How did nobody see you? Well, maybe people saw them and thought they were random people. Like,
that's true.
That does happen. How did we not see the pictures before they were published? But they listen. I think they can make a beautiful baby, beautiful baby, and they're both good looking. So, congrats to them. It's really out of my tax bracket. So
listen, Godspeed.
We ain't in it. So
I'm gonna just mind my black business and drink my water.
Exactly. Let us talk about Nicholas Scott Cannon, father. So far, really father of 7, tragically lost one.
Yes.
So father of 6 now, but is now expecting another baby. With a lady named Bree Tiesi, who's supposedly Johnny Manziel's ex-wife.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So, expecting what will be his 8th kid. First of all, there was this whole announcement about celibacy, and he explains that the announcement, the knowledge of this 8th baby was what led to the celibacy exercise.
My therapist was one of the ones who said I should probably be celibate, and the reason why is because I had shared that news about Bree being pregnant.
The whole thing is really we make jokes about it, and it is funny in some ways.
In some ways, it is.
But
it's
I
also...
really do think that because he's so playful, and because for so many of us, like, he's like, we've known him since we were kids, like, we've been watching Nick Cannon for like 25 years now, and so we laugh, and he laughs about it, but a part of me is like, this man's a monster, like this thing is crazy. I mean, if you think about it, like, if you think about just, and also by like 5 different women, mind you.
5.
So this is really, really a complicated situation, of which like 6 of those kids were born like the last like 5 years. So,
okay,
like,
so
when does the joking stop, and when do we start talking about this more seriously?
So I do have thoughts on this one, because I agree that it's one of those scenarios where it's like, on the one hand, not my business. If you have the resources to care for these children, sure, live your best life. Is that my preference? Hell to the fuck no. But you do you. That being said, though, I do think that you bring up a good point about kind of like, when does this stop being a joke? And he himself commented on this when talking about his celibacy and trying to like kind of clear that up, because I think this is back in like December, October, I can't remember, sometime late last year, that he noted that he was going to be celibate, and it was this this 8th child that sparked that decision. He apparently did not make it into 2022. Apparently didn't make it into 2022. Celibate.
Because he's known about this baby since October.
No, but he said that he had sex back in like, I think December 31st or something like that. So it was like he didn't make it into the new year.
Nick, we were rooting for you.
But were we though? Because I wasn't. Okay. I wasn't. But it is what it is. But that being said, he did so because of apparently a conversation that he'd had like with his therapist, and like talking about trying to kind of get to the root of like, why is this your reality, and I do think that needs to be explored more in depth. Like, I'm not saying that celibacy is like the answer, but he did mention that it allowed him the space to kind of reflect on himself and to like get to know himself better, which I think is lovely and beautiful, and perhaps maybe lean into that and like maybe find more opportunities to explore yourself, and to figure out like why you feel this need to like create this connection with these women, when I can't imagine a scenario where you can actively father 8 children in 5 different homes. It is not possible. You can provide resources,
which he has the resources.
Yes, you can completely provide resources for 8 different children in 5 different homes, but are you being an active father to 8 different children in 5 different homes? It is not possible. And so I think that like when, you know, so many people when they comment on the situation like, oh, well, he has the money, it's like, it's not about money. Like, are you being a father? That's not, that's a completely different conversation.
And it takes all these pictures on like, it puts pictures on Instagram, like
right,
shows
okay,
all
so
at
you're
the
at the
same
baby
time.
shower,
Like, okay, like,
you're doing this,
but
like,
does this thing when
yes,
you post
and like,
pictures
oh,
with many of the kids.
But can you even hold all those kids at the same time? You can't. Like, you can't watch them simultaneously.
But he's like so active with like the PR of it, where it's like, no, you're not fooling anybody. It's impossible to do it. And
my question is always like, but are you okay? Because like, what makes you think, oh, I have to not only like have sex with these women, but there's just something that is so much deeper, obviously, about having a child with a person.
Right. So that's what I was gonna say. So I was watching this video on TikTok of this woman who's a former phone sex worker.
Right.
And she said,
if it exists, someone is attracted to it. I bring this up because there's been a lot of news lately about certain celebrities having a shit ton of kids. Some people are surprised, but spoiler alert, I'm not. And I'll tell you why. Pregnancy kink, breeding fetish.
That she was talking about, you know, breeding fetishes and pregnancy kinks.
Yes.
And how Nick Cannon probably suffers from either or both. And the way she explained it was actually pretty, you know, of course I'm gonna put a clip of it, but she goes into so much detail and it makes so much sense. And yeah, it really makes you look at it differently and like really start feeling like maybe he needs help.
No, I do, because my thought process is like, when I see someone who's so focused on the family aspect of it all, you know, like, and having all of these children, like when I think about kids and why so many people like to have them, it's because of like legacy, and it's because there's, you know, always someone to kind of take care of you, and there's this sense of connection. Like you always have this connection with this person, even if you're not in like an active romantic relationship with them, whatever. Cool. And so when I see examples like Nick Cannon, my first thought is like, is there love that is missing in your life that you are trying to fill with children or with, you know, some semblance of family, or like where does that drive come from? So I don't know what the
and what kills me though is
that
I feel like, so she talks about how he tries to wrap a lot of this in like Pan-Africanism and how like, oh, you know.
I swear to God, if somebody.
But what kills me about Nick though is that he does do all that big talk about like, you know, black power or whatever, or pro-blackness. But he has not really been with like any women who are black from afar. And we love Mariah. Mariah, like, you'd have to be up close, right, to know. She would have to literally tell you. Brittany Bell, okay, if you met her, you might know, but she's still very much from afar, could fake it if she wanted to, and call herself something else.
Yeah, for sure.
Abby De La Rosa, I don't think is black at all. I think Alyssa Scott might be half, but like, it's just.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't personally know their backgrounds, but
they
but
all
yes,
look.
no,
none of them are black from afar. It's not.
Yes, there's a lot of racial ambiguity for sure.
For someone who does all that talk,
yes.
It's almost like this. Like, have you seen like Don't Be a Menace in South Central, where like this character who's like really pro-black, but he like ends up with a white woman.
My milk of magnesia. Oh. After the devil made you, he broke the mold. Well, maybe you and I could make a little jungle fever.
That's literally Nick Cannon. Like, he loves his milk of magnesia, for sure.
But he's also, I think if I remember correctly, made comments about like the challenges of being a darker black woman in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And but it wasn't within the context of like, oh, I'm personally doing anything about it. Okay. It was just like, generally.
That's a thing.
Right. And so and so I thought it was interesting because I was like, okay, but what are you doing to shift that? And right. And my thing is like when it comes
I guess
to
he did date Jessica White, and she's dark. So I guess
oh wow, one. Yay. Could like I guess you get a cookie. I don't know.
Right. And I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think she got pregnant as well and had a miscarriage. I think.
Wow, that's really
If that's a
tragic.
lie, then I'll scrap it. I'll cut this comment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah.
That's really tragic.
Yeah,
but
because she made a whole post about it.
oh well.
Yeah.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I will say though that when it comes to like my general view on people's choices as it relates to relationships, is like that shit is not my business. And as long as you're not trying to make it my business,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned. So like,
I mean, we'll talk about it, like,
right, but again,
But-
not my shit. Like
Yeah,
I don't
it's
like
this-
I just don't care enough. But it's always my main issue with black men who consistently date women who are not black. It's always like when you try to bring me into it, where it's like, well, I don't date X, Y, and Z because
Okay.
black.
Which
bitches,
I don't think that's Nick.
No, I don't think that's Nick. I'm just saying like that's where I'm like, well.
Which actually on a couple of the last couple episodes we spoke about these
Yeah.
guys on this podcast.
Oh my god.
We're not going to talk about them again, but you know who we're talking about.
Of course, because they're so lame.
Yeah.
They're so
Oh
fucking
my
black.
goodness. Yeah.
And what was funny though is like one, I had no idea like who these men were, like what their podcast was. Like I had no context. But when I figured out like what was going on, I was like, oh, okay, so you know you're irrelevant, and this is the reason why you need to like have these like really inflammatory conversations, because that is how you get clicks. Like that's how you get views, because no one else
And then when they
will
had
ever
like,
care about you.
Brittany Renner was
You're
in their
also not
face.
cute.
Brittany Renner was.
I thought that
like,
was hilarious.
Yeah,
What do you gain from telling girls that they're not special? How does that make you feel? I mean, I know everything is a joke, but I'm asking you a real question. So how does that make you feel? Because if I say you're a bitch ass nigga, that does something for me, right? If I insult you, or if I tell you you're not special, you're forgettable, what does that do for me? No, but that doesn't. But that's what I'm saying. No, but I'm saying, what if I call you? If I just say that again, you're forgettable. That's why I didn't want to do you guys' podcast. Forgettable. Hate the setup. The name is underwhelming. I didn't really see the value in it. Right? That's how I feel.
He was like right in front of them. And they were so quiet. He was like, I thought
Oh
you
yeah.
were,
I thought you were about that life.
Yeah.
Oh, but now we're gonna
really
we're
aren't.
here. We're gonna have this conversation,
Right.
and now you have nothing to say. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, but that's the kind of scenario where I'm like, what is the purpose of really giving it energy? Because at the end of the day, there's something that is very clearly wrong with you. Where you would feel the need to like put down any group of people to justify like your decisions in
Right.
relationships. So,
Just do you. Be
just
happy.
do you, and like say it with your chest.
Right. Unfortunate.
So anyway, I don't think that that's the scenario with Nick, but I do think it is really interesting
Yeah.
that
Especially, I mean,
there's that dichotomy.
Like, we could, like, maybe one or two women, okay, whatever, but, like, at this point, like, you're, like, 5 baby mamas
Yeah.
and it's quite consistent.
It's
so,
a trend.
And listen, and ultimately, I'm not saying that people can't make any, like, choices that they want to.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it doesn't mesh with the
Right.
Pan-African message and
Exactly.
branding.
Exactly.
Of which I don't even think you should be talking about that shit because he clearly doesn't have the range. Like every time he tries to, it's like I don't think you have the depth to really handle the topics you're trying to talk about. Which is why he gets in trouble. He made some comments that were anti-Semitic and somehow
I
got
remember
away
that.
from it because
that.
and that just shows his brand is quite
Yeah.
strong. Got away with it. Got to keep his Masked Singer
I
gig.
remember that.
Got to keep Wild and like it's amazing. But yeah, you know what? Let's talk a bit more about Nick Cannon because I have to say he's been working overtime to push misinformation about Dr. Sebi. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Nick is big on that. Like apparently working on a documentary. I don't know if ever that was released, but
I
he's
heard
working on a
about that.
documentary to promote Dr. Sebi, and I'm like, this guy's a confirmed quack. Like the information is out there, and I don't know why, but that's just more evidence that he's not that smart to me.
I mean, my thing is like, I will say that when it comes to like being someone who grew up very much on holistic remedies, and like my parents have always been very much about holistic remedies, always. And I feel like it was really beneficial. But that being said, it was never like, oh, you can only have holistic remedies. It was like I also had asthma as a child. So if I was having an attack, if I was having an attack, like they took me to the hospital. Like it wasn't like, oh, well, we're just gonna crush some ginger and like, no, let's
give me
help.
the sea moss.
A bitch is gonna
Down the
die.
barrier.
Like no, you know, because in so many ways, like the two can coexist, and I'm always hesitant to. I'm always hesitant to support like views that separate them and make it, you know, this or that, as if you can only have one. Like, no, actually, what my view of like holistic health and choice and access means that I'm able to access holistic remedies and I'm able to understand them fully, and also in acute situations be able to go to a hospital and be serviced in an accessible fashion in a way that does not then make me less safe because of the biases that exist in our medical system. Like, those two things can coexist. I'm always just hesitant to back ideas that focus specifically on holistic medicine, as if you can never then have Western medicine as well.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, you can actually just
Do both.
have both.
Go get vaccinated.
Thank you. Listen.
Like, it's
that
been 2
part.
years. Like, guys,
That part.
seriously, let's.
Because I'm tired.
Same.
I'm tired.
Yes.
COVID is ghetto. I'm tired.
Literally, like, this is most of this like meme on TikTok.
Time is slipping away from me. Yeah.
Honestly, facts. Honestly,
No, and as someone who has a late March birthday, literally, I turned one age, and literally, I'm going to my third birthday.
Yeah. That is
In the
that's
pandemic.
That's a thing.
So
That's a thing.
time is slipping away from me.
But honestly, facts though.
Facts,
So
unfortunately.
yeah, and granted, like when it comes to vaccination, like there are very real reasons why people have vaccine hesitancy, and I'm not going to discredit that. I do feel like there needs to be more work that is done to address why people have vaccine hesitancy, as opposed to making it like, oh well, fuck you, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I say that only because like there are real reasons why people do feel these
the
ways.
distrust is rooted in
Yes.
something.
And so it's like, okay, you should really probably address that. That being said, this shit is ghetto, and I'm trying to get the fuck out of a pandemic.
And
like,
a lot
I'm
of these people are
tired.
quite like
I'm tired.
impervious to like reason. So
No, that is
really,
true. That is
we,
true.
Like, we have to.
And I will say that
acknowledge
like
that as well.
it has also been proven that like the more attempts at convincing, like the less likely people are. Like the more
you made that point. If we're lucky, 2024.
Ooh.
Oh, you don't think so? Oh. Oh, really?
based on global numbers as opposed to just country to country, I think that's optimistic. Also, just based on the fact that people get more intractable as time goes on, they become less likely to be convinced to shift their behavior. Their views actually become more entrenched and more intractable the more you try to actually kind of get them over to the other side.
Right.
So there is that. I say all that to say I don't have the answers, but I do wish that we were in a place where people were not getting their information from Facebook and from Instagram.
Random websites.
Talking about, I'm doing my research. What research? Do you have are you reading medical journals? Are you doing your actual research? Like, are you setting up medical studies? Because I don't think you're doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm just really confused.
They're just, yeah.
I'm just really confused as to where
At
you're
this
getting
point, I'm
this
not like I
information.
don't even debate people about the vaccine anymore. Like,
Oh no, I definitely don't, because it's above me now.
Yeah, it is. Like, I'm just gonna do my part. I'm waiting for them to ask us to
above
take
me
another
now.
booster.
It's above me now.
I'm ready. Give me my second booster, that third. Like, clearly, this is gonna be what our lives look like for the foreseeable future. So, unfortunate. Changing gears
Yeah.
to a very sad topic. The 2019 Miss USA, Cheslie Kryst, passed away this past week. She jumped down from her building, I believe that the 29th
Yeah.
floor terrace is where she was last seen in Manhattan, and jumped to her death. And she's passed away. It's incredibly sad. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't think about anything else for like the 24 hours after the news broke, and it's just so sad to see someone who is that beautiful, that accomplished, was a lawyer, and also had an MBA, and was working on literally working what will be like a dream gig for me. And in many ways, she's what I would like to call one of God's favorites. Like, people who just seem to have it all. You have the looks, you have the accomplishment, you have like the person, like you have everything. Like, she interviewed Denzel Washington like 2 weeks before she died. Literally, you are the envy of most human beings, and you weren't happy. And so, you know, depression is not what most people think it is. Where it's like, where it's like, oh, you have, you know, you're depressed because you don't have this or you don't have that. You can see people who literally have everything, and you know, it's just not that simple.
It's never that simple. And I just have to say, first and foremost, obviously, just sending so much love to her family, to her friends, to her loved ones, because I'm sure that it was a shock for them as well. And, you know, suicide in particular is always just, in so many ways, death is challenging generally, but like when you just really just don't see that coming, I think that is another layer of hurt, and so I'm just sending them all the support that they need during this time. I will say that, you know, depression is a silent killer, and it doesn't matter how beautiful you are, it doesn't matter how much fame you have, it doesn't matter, you know, how much prestige you have. It will trick you into believing that you're better off not being here. And so I'm just so sad that that was where she ended up, but I also feel like it was in some ways a call. And we always say this, you know, whenever suicide is the cause of death, you know, check on your strong friends and blah blah blah. And it's like, it's so much deeper, but it's also like, okay, but then what? Like, you check on them and then what? Like, what are you doing to try to make sure that they feel supported? Like, what do you actually, what signs are you looking for? Like, do you know what to look out for? You know, when there's a potential that your friend is suicidal, like, what are you even looking for? People just say check on your strong friends as if that is like the end of that call to action. And I would go a step further and say, like, educate yourself on what are the signs of depression, and because there is a difference, mind you, between depression and suicidal ideations, and people can be depressed and not suicidal. And
most depressed people are not suicidal.
Yes, like most depressed people are not suicidal, but you can also have suicidal ideations, and it can show up in a variety of ways. And so I would just encourage people to really educate themselves on like what that looks like, and what to kind of listen out for when you are having these conversations where you're checking on your strong friends, quote unquote, because you just never know. And I think for her, being such an accomplished person, being someone who's so in the public sphere, there's something that's even more challenging about going through mental health crises in that space, because where do you even turn? Like, I have no idea, like, where do you even turn in that scenario?
Apparently she told no one till like days before her death. Like, she told her mom that she was depressed, apparently shortly before she finally took her life. It's incredible. Now, one thing that I think gives you a little bit of an insight to how she was feeling was an essay she wrote for a magazine right before she turned 30 last year. And you could just see that she was kind of agonizing about turning 30, and it's like, it's crazy that I mean, I guess I'm speaking for myself and most of my friends. I also live in DC, where most 30-somethings act like they just graduated college, but that's another conversation. And I love that, by the way. But it's like, for a lot of people, they still feel that way, like, oh, 30, like, my wife's, you know, why am I not this? Why am I not that? Or what's, you know.
But that's the thing, like, comparison will steal your joy. And and we were talking about this kind of offline before we even got into this, into the podcast, but like just talking about how the silver lining of comparison is that it does drive you to want more. Like you can see your friends and be like, oh, this person is really killing it. Like, let me get like them. There is that part of comparison. I think is really positive. But then on the other hand, there's the other aspect where you find yourself feeling like you haven't done enough. And we all do this. I certainly do this on a regular basis where I'm like, oh, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And it's like, who said you were supposed to be there? First of all, like, who said that this was actually where your journey was supposed to go? Like, you're where you are supposed to be right now. Point blank period. And I think that it can be really, really challenging to have this perception of like what your life is supposed to look like, and bridging the gap between that vision and your reality. That's where the depression often lies. And it's not just her. It's not just like people that we see in the public eye, but especially being still in a pandemic. Y'all really think we out of this panini? We not. Anyway.
We in it.
We are still in it, and having like come through this, now entering year 3, there are so many of us who have really had challenging experiences with our mental health, myself included, and it's like these are actually unprecedented times. I know we say that shit a lot, but like we're literally in unprecedented times, and so mental health issues are going to be more of a problem. COVID is not the only killer. Right. It is the depression that is associated with being in this current environment. There's so many other factors that are going into why people are feeling the way that they're feeling, and they're all valid.
I think the great resignation is a byproduct of that.
Oh,
where,
for
like,
sure.
Everyone's like taking an inventory of their lives.
Oh, for sure. Like, and realizing like, wait, I don't actually like my life. Like, wait a second. Like, I don't like this job. Actually, fuck this job.
Like, tons of people on TikTok are like, oh, I quit and I have nothing lined up.
Yeah.
But back to Cheslie, it's so sad. And like in the essay, she talks about how like people were calling for the age limit to be reduced for Miss USA because she was the oldest Miss USA ever. People calling her ugly, and it's just she was going through things, but like and of course we can't like diminish any of that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, this is a girl who's like beautiful, talented, more accomplished than in her 30 years.
But that's
than
the
most
thing.
people.
That's your perspective. That is your perspective, like seeing her from the outside looking in and going like, wow, she's amazing. Of course. I think most people would look at her and her resume and her life experiences and be like, yes, she is incredible. But that is the thing about depression. It steals your joy and it creates a reality in your mind, a perception of yourself that is not actually true. It lies to you consistently, but it's not, it's not for us really to say like, oh, but her life was so amazing. Because yes, it looks like it was amazing. And she was an incredible person by so many standards. But
and
like,
aside from all that, was actually like a really good person. Like she was doing like pro bono work for people who had been, I think, wrongly incarcerated. And it's just, it's sad. Yeah. Like I was really just devastated by the news. And
but I mean, I do say that like I was serious about the like kind of emphasis on, or like the call to action in so many ways, because it is not enough to just kind of check on people, but like really know what signs you're looking for, and don't just check on other people, check on yourself, because I know a lot of people who are real quick to pour into others and to like support their friend groups and all that, but like they never take a moment to go, oh wait, I actually am not really okay right now.
Habitual caretakers.
Right. I mean, I fall into that pattern myself all the time. It's like, oh, but I'm not okay. Like, spending a lot of time focusing on other people, but I haven't dealt with my own shit. And shout out to my therapist. That's all I have to say.
I love it. All right. Winners and losers. Malika, I will let you go first.
Gosh. Okay. So who are my winners and who are my losers? I will say that the losers for me for this week, because I'll start with the losers. Drake.
Okay, that's fair. They roasted him.
I really did, and I was here for it. I thought it was so funny. Oh, poor baby. But but I will say Drake, for obvious reasons, because you know he's outside the house just writing his next song, writing his next Marvin's. He is at Marvin's house right now.
Right.
And I will also say anybody who expected an additional album from me, because you ain't never getting that album. Myself included, we're never getting the album. It's fine. It's fine. We're never getting it.
She made good music. She has, how many?
There's a catalog
like
that
7
I
albums
love.
already. That's more albums than most people are
There's a
released.
catalog that I love personally, and that's all we'll ever get.
Yeah.
So,
Hate to see
Godspeed. Let me think. Who are my winners? Okay, so for winners, I'll say anyone who never knew that what they really wanted out of life was a Fenty baby line. Because I feel like we're gonna get one.
If she does that, she's really gonna kill that market.
Listen, because if there's a Fenty baby wear line, I would just say you heard it here first. If you would like to hire anyone for strategic communications, if you need somebody in that area, I got you, boo. I'm here for you, sister to sister. That's all I'm saying.
It's worth it.
Call me. So I will say anyone who never knew that they really needed a Fenty baby wear line. And gosh, who else is a winner this week? Actually, some pretty good winners. Oh, you know what? And I'm gonna hate myself because I don't actually remember this gentleman's name, but there is a Haitian skier who is the first Haitian at the Winter Olympics representing for skiing. And, yes, and like, forgive me because his name, but shout out to this gentleman who is repping Haiti. Chérie. I am not Haitian, by the way. I have to give that disclaimer, but I did live there for a couple years and love the country very much. So, but yeah, no, shout out to Haiti. Shout out to this gentleman repping in the cold because I don't do cold. So there's that. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's my winner for this week. Okay. So shout out to him.
Okay. All right, since you started with losers first, I will do the same. Quite a few. I will start with Kanye West, who's apparently telling people that
it's a persistent loser.
Right? Yeah, really.
Last several.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. He's been going around telling people that Pete Davidson has AIDS.
Kanye's been telling anybody within an earshot of himself how he's trying to spread a rumor that Pete Davidson has AIDS. I'm telling you, this is a fact. I've heard this from 8 people. He's telling everybody.
Which I just think is just like...
Sir.
Why are we doing that?
I'm just saying, if you're a hater, just say that.
Right, it's just...
just be done. If you're a hater, just say that.
That's crazy. So,
Lord.
Yeah, Kanye West is definitely my first loser. My second loser is slipping my mind. We'll get back to it, but winners.
Slipping away,
yeah, slipping away, bro.
I had to.
Right, of course, that was perfect. But winners, my winners are fresh in my mind. Cardi B for getting a couple $1 million settlement for suing Tasha K, which is crazy.
Listen, you're gonna talk out the side of your neck,
right? Put that woman out of it. For anyone who doesn't remember,
that's great.
The blogger Tasha K basically just made up lies about Cardi B, saying she used to be a prostitute, that she had STDs and all types of shit, and she sued and followed through with it. It's been 3 years, in the making, and so she won and was awarded a $1 million settlement. So yeah, Cardi B, winner.
And you know what I also love about that was that she was so, like, I don't think I've seen Cardi come out and like make any type of grandiose statement about this. It was like, run me my check.
Right.
And just kept it pushing.
Right.
I love that for her.
Right.
I love that for her.
Right. And then my next winner is Janet Jackson. There was a documentary this past weekend that I implore you to watch. It's really good.
I have to watch it. I've only seen like snippets. I have to watch the whole thing.
It just lets you really, I mean, they a lot was left out of it, but overall it's just like a beautiful just look at her life leading up to this point. And this makes you appreciate just how much she's done for us and done for popular music. And you know, listen, I was so entertained.
She's a queen.
She really is. She really is. And in the days since it's aired, first of all, it was the highest rated documentary since Michael Jordan's Last Dance, and she has been ruling the iTunes charts since then. Like all her songs and videos and albums are like in the top 10, and so it's a great moment for Janet Jackson, and I think we just she deserves all of it. And in the documentary, she actually tells us to like leave Justin alone, and we all said no. And
we're not over it.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm not
if
sorry.
you want to forgive him, that's fine.
Like, that's lovely. That's great for you.
Yeah, that's on you.
That's great for you.
But we ain't in it. So, yeah, that's really, I don't know what to tell her. But, yeah, I had all these things written down, but, like, they're in my notes, and I don't want to end the video. But I have, I think I've got some good winners and losers. Give me a moment. Let me think, because let me dig.
Method Man's finest.
Do you want to talk about Method Man?
I'm just saying that Method Man has been in the entertainment industry for a couple decades now, and he has only gotten finer. And he recently did this like Essence interview where he talks about kind of the
being objectified.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really. It was more so like the unexpectedness of becoming kind of a sex symbol, and how he really just kind of wants to be taken seriously as opposed to being objectified. And my first thought upon kind of reading this was like, or we could do both. Like, I take you seriously, and I also find you to be incredibly attractive. So, layers is all I'm saying. Okay. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna actually real quick add another loser.
Yeah.
The NFL just been sued by Brian Flores.
Well deserved.
For being super fucking racist. Apparently, they did this thing where, like, because there's a Rooney Rule, which requires them to interview at least 2 minorities for every head coaching job, and at least 1 minority for all the operations jobs, senior operations jobs. And they called him for an interview, the Giants, and there was this other guy named Brian Dabble or something, or Dabble, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but Bill Belichick texted Brian Flores saying congrats, but he texted the wrong Brian.
And he had not actually interviewed
yet. So that means he interviewed after they had already picked their winner for the job, the person that they were going to hire.
Because the requirement is that they interview.
Not that they hire.
Exactly.
And so it makes you wonder how our careers are affected by things like this.
Oh, of course.
And I'm talking about, like, it clearly is happening in other industries where, like, they just wanted to, like, present, a concerted effort or sincere effort to be inclusive, and so let's just interview these people.
No, that's consistent. That's a consistent issue, and it's something that I think a lot of the private sector, and not just private sector, but a lot of industries reconciled with that, in particular after George Floyd, because there was this surge of attention focused on racial justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it was it felt to me as if there was a lot of attention and a lot of conversation, but not necessarily a lot of systemic change. Right. And I've seen some improvements. I've seen some examples where I'm like, okay, I think you're really putting some thought into this, but generally I think a lot of unfortunately a lot of initiatives around equity are often performative, and they are not focused on really any systemic change. They're focused on the lip service and the optics, and it's like, those of us who are representing marginalized communities, like, we know it's not like you're not slick. Like, we can tell.
Right.
We can tell.
Yeah.
And we can tell because we're not being promoted at the same rates. Like, we can tell because you still aren't running us our checks. So, yes, actually, we know. Like, we're asking for advancement. We're asking for opportunities. We're asking for, you know, the door to actually be opened, as opposed to, you know, these consistent barriers. And instead you're giving us like Black happy hours and
wake it up.
Right. And conversations around D&I with the CEOs where there are questions that are asked anonymously but never really answered. And so conversation is great. I am a strong proponent of open communication. But that being said, if you're not going to walk the walk, if you're only going to talk the talk, you can keep it, actually, because I don't actually need that lip service. Like, what I need is real action. So you can keep that. Thanks. I will say that in terms of additional winners, my last one that I forgot about is just Rihanna herself, because she looks amazing. And I think that, you know, she wears motherhood really beautifully, and I hope that she has a really smooth and easy pregnancy. Pregnancy is incredibly hard, and both that process and the birth itself are going to be challenging. So I will say she is carrying with a lot of grace, and just looks really, really happy. So I wish her all the best.
I like that A$AP Rocky's Bajan as well, or half Bajan at least. His dad was Bajan.
Yeah, I mean, that was all well and good, but it also just made me like more irritated, because I was like, oh, so you're also just like representing the colorism of the islands. Lovely, thank you for that. That's all I'm saying.
Ooh, well, there you have it. But yeah, I'm gonna add a couple more winners. Chris Cuomo, who is,
you know, I thought about including him. I thought about putting him on my list.
That's, you know what? That's how I play. That's how I play. I'm really like that.
The petty. Petty.
So Chris Cuomo, former host of Cuomo Primetime, which was like the 9 p.m. show on CNN, actually was the biggest show on the network.
Yes.
And then was fired because he was found to have been colluding with his brother, former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and trying to help him like deal with his sexual misconduct.
So to be clear, deeply problematic.
Deeply problematic, for sure.
There's no real winner here.
There's no real winner,
you know.
and it's all villains, by the way.
Right.
But also, you know, it's unrealistic to think that someone's not going to help their brother when they have a big platform. So anyway, he was fired, and on his way out, we were finding out today, actually. Today is February 3rd. He revealed that Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, was sleeping with, or had a relationship, I mean, of course they were intimate, with a woman named Allison Gallust, or Galliust, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah, but she was the CMO of CNN, Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Vice President of CNN Worldwide. And because of that, Jeff Zucker was, I think, made to resign. You know, I don't think that was voluntary. And
I doubt it.
So yes. And so basically, he lit the place on fire on his way out. And I'm not mad at him. Like, really, I'm not mad. And mind you, this lady, Allison, used to work for Andrew Cuomo.
Oh no.
She used to do PR for Andrew Cuomo before she joined CNN.
No.
And he says that emails between her and Jeff and Andrew show that they had been inviting him to come on CNN. So like, they were basically
layers.
Yeah, like crucifying him for something that they seem to have been supporting in emails. But whatever the case, the relationship has been exposed, and I think there's a larger conversation here about how people sometimes have these relationships at the workplace, and then you see them rising through the ranks. And this is not to say the woman isn't talented. We know nothing about her and her skills.
I don't know anything about her.
But it does raise questions. That's, CMO sometimes, because you see some situations where it's like they're rising through the ranks, and it might not make sense to you.
And see, but that's the issue, I think, with a lot of not just workplace romantic relationships, but what I would like to kind of key in on is the disparity in relationships that exist in the workplace in general, right? Because how many times have we heard about kind of like the good old boys club and, you know, the men who are invited to play golf and like their kids go to the same private schools and like they have these networks and these circles that exist outside of the workplace that are then reinforced within that space. Excuse me. So for me, it's not just about like the romance of it all. Like I think we like to kind of like make these kind of salacious, you know,
it's the broader
but it
fraternization.
is the broader conversation about like having relationships with people that, you know, work with you, that go beyond what is, you know, the 9-to-5 business, and how does that benefit you? Because it is common knowledge that having friendships outside of the workplace with the people that you work with, especially if they're in positions of power, can help you advance. And so I think that we focus on it so often when there is romance involved because we love a good, like, sexy, salacious tidbit, but we never really examine the fact that, like, what actually needs to be discussed is the unfairness of this, you know, kind of disparity in relationships. It's like, if I don't want to hang out with you on a Saturday because, like, my weekends are sacred, like...
Or sometimes it can be as simple as, oh, I'm not interested in the same...
Right, and we just don't...
Exactly. We can't talk about baseball because I don't care about baseball.
Right,
and now my career is suffering because of that.
Exactly. And so it's like, I think we need to have a larger conversation just about, like, how favors are doled out or how preference is given within workplaces based on affinity bias, you know, as opposed to just like, oh, there was romance. But it's like, you also just like this person because you both root for the same sports team, which I've seen commonly.
Yes.
Or because you're from the same town. Yeah. Or, you know, like, they're like, pick your affinity. Right. You like this person because of this reason. And you're more likely to think about them first when it comes to advancement just because of this affinity bias. And so it's not just romance. Like, obviously, I think that there are a lot of fish in the sea, and like maybe you should start looking outside your office for, you know, for your relationships, but that's not my business. But for me, it's really not about that, because she could be an incredibly stellar executive. Yeah. And I think it is unfortunate that so many people are going to start thinking like, oh, well, did she get to where she was supposed to be? Right. Like, I don't know anything about her. Right. She could be incredible.
I just want to be clear that ultimately, even though, yes, I'm saying sometimes you see people rise through the ranks, it's like,
right, and that's true. Yeah. But it's like, I don't actually know anything about this particular person. Exactly. So I want to make it clear that I'm not talking about her.
Of course not.
But I do think it is unfortunate that, like, that is our instinctive kind of thought process, because we're like, wait a second, but how did this you know, and it's and I think that's ultimately why so many people avoid workplace relationships, because they don't want their actual resume to be questioned, or they don't want their caliber of work to be questioned, because that is a conversation that's ultimately going to happen. But we never have those same conversations about just like kind of the basic affinity bias that is associated with like, oh, I just fuck with you because our kids go to the same school and we're on PTA together.
Unfortunately, it's usually some just random basic ass reasons like that.
Right.
And now you're VP.
Right. Like, you're actually the most mediocre person in this company, but now you're look VP.
At you. Like, you're about to be CEO.
Congratulations.
But,
not the Nancy Pelosi clap.
Right. No, but really, it's like, you know, it's crazy. But yeah, when Chris Cuomo, you know, just, you won.
That was hilarious. I will just say, just from the comedy of it all, I was like,
it's just damn. And he apparently brought it up while he was negotiating his severance package. That man.
Just have to say,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
It's like, was his support for his brother problematic? Yes.
Absolutely. But like, ultimately,
don't think that you should have got away with that. But also the burning it down on your way out was hilarious.
Yeah. And that's so my style. So I love it.
Because you're petty.
You know, but I have to say, like, as much as what he did with his brother was bad, I just don't think, what were we expecting? Like, I always thought the right way to do it was to have him not be on the show at all. I always thought it was problematic to have him interview his brother, period.
No, I agree with that.
Like, even when it was, like...
I agree with that. Because there was an obvious compliment.
Yeah, and when people thought it was cute when they're like, banter, oh, have you called mom? Yeah. I was like, this is inappropriate. Like, this is a governor, this is serious business for the pandemic. Yeah. He should not be interviewing his brother. Yeah. So that has always been my stance. And of course, it blew up in their faces.
And granted, and I think that if you were having a conversation that was more of, kind of a not really like a fluff piece or like something that was like more complimentary to a serious segment, then perhaps you do want the brother to come in, because it's really all about like when you're thinking about like your messaging, it's about what do people need to hear and from whom. And so perhaps it is my brother that is better positioned to have a certain conversation. But if you're talking about kind of serious subject matter that ultimately will need to that is going to get wide viewership, then I would say it was probably not the best idea.
No.
So
sorry, you're bad. But anyways, final winner, Moderna, who just began trials for an HIV vaccine.
Yes.
They're doing it in collaboration with an organization. I forget their name, but they're dedicated to fighting HIV. I'm going to put it on the screen. But they started trials last week. What a time to be alive. If this turns out to be successful, this will be transformational for a lot of lives. For people who are living, well, maybe not people living with it, but definitely people who may be at risk of getting it for whatever reason. I think it's fantastic. So hopefully that works out. And fingers crossed. Honestly, we should all just go buy some Moderna stock, just in case. But, that's it. Malika, this was so much fun. We could have gone honestly, I was looking at the time, it's been over an hour, and I'm trying to make the episodes shorter, but the conversation was amazing.
But you really like to kiki.
I just appreciate you stopping by. You always have amazing thoughts. You're literally one of the smartest people I know.
Oh,
and
so sweet.
Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure.
Episode 54. Talk to you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.